Today we're talking about our collaboration, our community collaboration with the SAPAR program in Madison. And it's a perfect topic for this talk, I think, because it does involve research, but it also hopefully involves a transactional relationship between our community partners and our occupational therapy program. And so I'm an associate professor in the kinesiology department occupational therapy program and an investigator at the Weisman Center. And we do have some co-presenters with us today, and I'll maybe let each one of them just briefly introduce themselves. So Jessie, would you like to go first? Just introducing yourself to the audience.
Sure. Hi, thank you for having me, inviting me into this space. I am Jessie Loeb, and for 3 years now, I've been teaching the childbirth, parenting A, which is early parenting, parenting B, and adult roles education at SAPAR. Yeah, so that, I mean, that's
perfect.
pretty much
Yep.
my role, aside from, you know, being sort
teacher,
of a
teacher extraordinaire.
Yeah, you know,
teacher extraordinaire.
You know, but working with the small team that has been in Marquette, which is a small kind of 3 classroom program with a daycare, which I just thought I would add in there because it's really important. And the UWOT group has utilized that space for screenings and things like that. So we work closely with Reach Dane Daycare Center as well.
Allie?
Yeah, hi, I'm Allie. I'm a second year MSOT student, and I guess all I'll say for now, because I'll talk at the end a little bit, is that I've been involved in SAPAR since like day 1 of our program, and I just absolutely love it.
Yasmeena? Maybe, is Yasmeena not here? Oh yeah, she is. Yasmeena, you're muted.
Sorry.
There you go.
Hi, my name is Yasmeena Ougayour. I have been with SAPAR since 2018. I recently finished my master's in occupational therapy and fully bridged into the post-professional clinical doctorate in OT. And I have the pleasure to take independent research credit with Karla, and I chose to work with the SAPAR program. So I'm excited to talk about that later on.
And then last but not least, Libby.
I'm Libby Hladik, and I'm currently a PhD student in Karla's lab, studying kinesiology, occupational science. But I also, like Yasmeena, came straight through my master's program. So now I'm a clinical OT and a PhD student. And I'll tell you more about all of my SAPAR experience through those years at the end.
And thank you, Libby. And these students were very intentionally chosen, one because of their diverse involvement in the program, but also to represent that we've really taken a multi-level approach to integrating students into the SAPAR program and mentoring. So students can start participating in the program activities starting in their master year, and actually sometimes as undergraduates in the lab. And then they continue to participate, and we try to create roles for first year MSOT students, and then we have second year MSOT students mentor the first year and trying to support not only engagement with the program, but leadership and mentoring opportunities for our more senior graduate students throughout the time. So this work is done through the Ausderau lab, and our research lab specifically focuses on the health and well-being of families and children to young adults with neurodevelopmental disabilities. And not only in thinking about how we can support them with developmental disabilities, but thinking of a more preventative role and thinking about overall family health and well-being, which really aligns with goals and objectives of our SAPAR program. And this is just a snapshot of some of our lab members pre-COVID, clearly. And I think right now we probably have almost 30 members in our lab, including undergraduate students to PhD students. So we're really fortunate to have a large, diverse lab team. Most of the students that actually interact with the SAPAR program are from the occupational therapy program. And the occupational therapy program is within the School of Kinesiology, is within the Department of Kinesiology. in the School of Education, kind of a unique place for us to be situated within the university. And our program currently is a master's program, an MSOT program that also has a post-professional clinical doctorate, so an OTD, as well as a PhD track. Next year, we are eliminating our master's program and we will move into an entry-level clinical doctorate. So the OT program at Madison will have an entry-level clinical doctorate, a post-professional clinical doctorate, and a PhD track. And as part of their education process, they have to participate in research projects that are associated with their research mentor. And that is how they're initially aligned and integrated into the SAPAR program. Students in my research lab have first priority, but it is a highly sought after experience within the OT program. And so there are certain events where we do encourage other people to sign up as far as participating in support, such as the community engagement events at the Night at the Museum, which I'll talk a little bit about later. And I specifically chose this picture to represent our OT program because you can see that we take a family approach to participation. And so often we have our families and children participating as well. So you'll see Libby in the front holding her baby Nella, who now is not such a baby anymore, but participating in some of our activities. So I'm going to give an overview of SAPAR program, and then I'm going to let Jessie expand on it on the next page when we talk about the aims and maybe more about our collaboration. So SAPAR is a school-age parenting program that is housed within the Madison Metropolitan School District. So it is a public school district program, and it's considered an alternative education program that's tailored to meet the specific needs of pregnant and parenting teens. During my time in the program, which has been many, many years, the majority of the teens are from MMSD, but on occasionally you will see students from surrounding districts who opt into the program. It provides an individual learning environment that builds a supportive community and promotes each student emerging roles as a parent. And because I have been with the program for such a long time, I've had the opportunity to work with Jessie, but also Lisa, who was before Jessie, and other program staff. And the commitment and consistency, even as staff change to these basic ideals, is phenomenal. And so we feel very fortunate to have a long-standing collaboration with the program that I feel allows us to have meaningful work for our students, but also hopefully an impact on the program as well. Let's see what goes next. So the general program aims is to increase high school graduation and post-secondary enrollment, prevent repeat pregnancies before age 20, improve overall parenting skills, educate students about prenatal care and child development, provide additional supports to students as they adapt to being a parent. And I think that this is one thing that they do particularly well and individualize for the different students in their program. They really work to facilitate positive relationships among their students and reduce overall barriers to accessing education. So they provide on-site childcare, as Jessie mentioned, transportation, and support students in enrolling in programs, community programs and social support programs that they are eligible for. And I'd like to emphasize that this is all in addition to regular academic needs that students have to meet. Jessie, would this be a good place for you to talk a little bit about your role in our collaboration?
Sure. Thank you for
and the
all
program
of that.
a little bit from your perspective.
Thank you. That was a great, wonderful, thorough summary. Actually, I appreciate seeing that. So I think where I would start is that one of the big things, and I know Lisa did it too, and my goal was to even continue that more so in the, with 20th century learning and skill set targets, that connecting SAPAR students to the outside community is by far one of the biggest needs, and I just think a very crucial aspect of the program. There are many, many reasons why these students are pregnant at a very young age. And a lot of these students are isolated for whatever reasons that may be. And there's a lot of mistrust in adults around them, some of them, and a lot of they're young, right? And so no matter where youth is coming from, learning how to communicate with adults and learning how to trust adults and create trusting, I guess I would say, partnerships, like sharing and having a partnership with an adult, is something that's really, really important to me. So having the UWOT group, I'm going to start, but then I have, I'll go back to the nuts and bolts. Having the OT students come in and create safe, supportive, non-judgmental relationships with these students opens up the world of these students, knowing that there are people out there who care about them. There are people out there that don't look like them. There are people out there who are professionals and know things that they don't know, but will partner with them in education for them and their child. So what I have seen over the past few years is, students who normally wouldn't want to engage with a stranger, once they know that the UWOTs are there to promote happiness and growth in their baby and or baby to come, right? These barriers break down and communication happens between student and adult. And it's a beautiful thing to see. So that is first and foremost, these community connections. Now the students know that if they go to their pediatrician and they learn this from the OTs, if there are milestones that aren't being met or that need to be supported a little bit more, they know that there are people out there who can help and that it's not a judgment on their parenting or anything like that. So it's a big deal to have these trusting partnerships with professionals that can help them and their child. So that's first and foremost. There's, I'm going to say, 3-part system that your team has done with SAPAR. One, there's a focus on promoting all the 3 main milestones, like developmental milestones: social, emotional, cognitive, and physical developmental milestones, which are the trifecta that I focus a lot on in both parenting A and parenting B, to sort of teach the students how can they be successful, positive partners with their own baby and, promoting development in these areas. So the UWOTs have come in. I'm sorry, do you hear that? Okay, that's my son. Parenting from home, it's fun. Working from home is fun. Okay, so that's a big chunk, is literally physically coming in, talking about these developmental milestones, physically and verbally showing the students what kinds of activities they can do with their child to support these areas of development, how they can do this, finding safe objects in their home, where they can go outside of the home, all that stuff. So that's that one piece. The next piece that I think kind of came in new with you guys is that we were trying, which is amazing, and I hope it continues, is the wellness and mindfulness sessions in my adult roles course, which is really focused on trying to, it's like a teenage pregnant woman studies course, focusing on kind of how can they be the best mom and person they want to be in their world, their literal world today, with everything that all the challenges with which they deal and come upon. So the health and wellness mindfulness workshops that we tried have been fantastic. It has really promoted self-reflection and allowing the girls to know that it's okay to not be okay, but then to understand how they can be the drivers of their own car, like own mental car, right? Like they can be in the driver's seat and figure out how to get from their traffic jam to out of the traffic jam, kind of, so to speak. And then the third thing, there was one other thing that I was going to say. Oh, the baby is the literal assessments, the actual physical assessments that we weren't able to do on Zoom, but that the OTs would take students on and their babies on a one-to-one basis and go into the daycare and do physical assessments and kind of show the girls, this is what we're looking for, reflexes, social emotional connections, all those kinds of things. So not only will the girls know where their babies are in terms of development, but it just makes going to the pediatrician that much more of a safe space for them, because all the things that, not only can they go to their pediatrician being very proud that, their babies are doing these things and they can share that information with their pediatrician, but it's also less scary to hear pediatric vocabulary that you don't really understand. And they come to some of these wellness checkups knowing what they're talking about. And after these assessments, the OTs would always give the students very individualized specific tools to continue promoting all the beautiful things they see happening in their babies. So that is my gestalt. That is the big story. But I guess I would say, and I don't know if this is a place to say it, SAPAR is the name, right, of this program. Within a couple years, that acronym is probably going to dissolve, but it doesn't change that this will always be a student age parenting program. Like no matter what you call it, even if you call it a candy bar, I mean, these are teenage moms doing the best they can and seeking out education to promote positive, nurturing parenting and post-secondary planning. So whatever you call it, it's still the same program with me and the team and the students. So yeah.
And we are glad that it'll still be there.
Yes.
Thank you, Jessie. And oh yeah, anything else, Jessie?
No, I mean, I kind of wanted to talk about the community connection piece, which I still think is, even if students don't remember what they're learning in school, to know that they can function in a world that they don't feel comfortable in is, like, to me, such a key thing. But those three main parts, I would say: the developmental milestone, the wellness and mindfulness programming, and the assessments. That trifecta is also kind of, I feel like, the umbrella that you bring into the program. But I'm happy to answer if you have any other questions or.
So for those who are with us, is the reason we're having Jessie jump in is because she has to get back to her regular teaching responsibilities within the program at 9:30. So if anyone has specifically a question for Jessie, now would be a good time to ask it before we go on and talk about the program from maybe the OT perspective a little bit more. But if not, that's okay too, and we can always relay your question and I will text Jessie.
Is there any other piece that you want me on which to focus or talk about? I'm happy to. Okay.
Nope.
Okay.
I think that's perfect. Just your kind of perspective on where and how we are collaborating. So stay on as long as you can, but we appreciate you jumping in. Oh yeah.
I could add, let's not forget the amazing work that's been done over Zoom. I can't believe I missed that part. I mean, I almost feel like, granted, it's not in person, I've been able to have you guys in our space so much more than I think we would normally get to do. And I have students just who you have been able to, through Zoom, create relationships with at least a handful of students who look forward to you visiting, who have actually tried to do so many of the things that we're talking about. And right now we're doing some topics on routines and rituals and rules, and why having all those things in place with an infant and baby is so important. And a handful of our students are really trying to create positive rituals and routines in their homes, hoping that it helps all different areas of their child rearing. And it's, I mean, that's just one piece. We started the first semester doing all these like reading to your baby sessions and, you know, just tactile, physical activities and games and things that you can do with your baby when you're at home. And we've been, the OTs have been able to do so much on Zoom that I've just been floored at what we've been able to accomplish. And I'm always kind of like over the top in gratitude of the time that everybody takes to make these slides for the students and to have these thorough, friendly, wonderful sessions. I have students who are like, "Where's Megan? Where?" You know, like, you know, it's just really, it's really sweet. So I got to mention the virtual success that we have had. That has been absolutely fantastic.
Fantastic. Jessie, I think Kate has a question.
Hi, thank you for this. I'm really interested in this program and just hearing more about it. So I have a question. So kind of about like the additional resources and such that that these women may need to like help them get to whatever goals they would like. So thinking about like my own experience. So I was a young mom, had my son when I was 17. And there were a lot of like access to food stamps and access to
I can't talk. I'm sorry. Hold on.
Yeah.
I can't. What?
Can you just go through these books
I'm in the
and
middle.
tell me which ones you want
I
to
can't
give
okay.
away
Okay.
later?
Sorry, you guys. That was just my. Okay. Okay.
That's okay. That's okay. No problem. And so all these like resources that were available that have really like helped me, you know, increase, I think my outcomes, my things like that, and has gotten me kind of to where I am today. A lot of these additional resources. You had mentioned like partnerships, right, with this OT program, which is really important. Are there partnerships with like governmental organizations or things like that that have been really helpful, or things that you all are thinking of kind of getting that network to maybe a better level for women, if not already there?
Well, so that is I love that question because it's like my favorite question, because I really have worked so hard at finding other relationships. So I'm just going to give you a few, but then if you want to talk more about it, I would love to share more. We are presently contracting with Dr. Yasmine Zapata, for example, who, well, it seems like you know, this woman is, I mean, she is outstanding. And she, so she is doing this, it's Beyond Beautiful. She does these Beyond Beautiful workshops all over the country with her mom, Mama Jewel. It's about Beyond Beautiful, you know, educating young women on courage, resiliency, creativity, self-reflection, self-esteem. She, you know, of course, aside from being one of the solid, what do you call it, like powerhouse research head, I guess, of on Black infant mortality right now, the Black infant mortality rates in Dane County. She has started this research here in Madison, which is really taken off. She is a family practitioner, pediatric. She delivers babies at Meriter. I mean, she has so many hats, but she's been coming into SAPAR now for a few years. And she does this Beyond Beautiful curriculum with our students. So that's one. We have Rape Crisis Center come. We have Briar Patch come. We have Commonwealth come, and they do sessions on how do you apply for a job? How do you even know where to apply for a job? What do you do at an interview? Why do you do that at an interview? So they do sessions with us on post-secondary planning and financial literacy, like budgeting, which is amazing. I'm just trying to think. There's we have
Jessie, would I be accurate in saying that we asked Jessie to represent SAPAR today because that's who our primary contact is as far as collaboration with the SAPAR program. So we're kind of highlighting some of the child development, parent engagement pieces that we play. But one of the things that I think is so fantastic about the SAPAR program is that they do have a staff of 3 to 4 people that address different things. So my experience is, Kate, yes, they're hooking them up with food stamps. They're hooking up with any social services programs in the community that they can get engaged with. They're helping them with childcare if they're not eligible for the childcare on site. And those services, I think, are ongoing relationships as well as individualized for the specific need of the student, because clearly they're all quite unique in depending upon where and what they come in and what they need. Would that be fair to say, Jessie?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. There's so many individualized needs, and we will go above and beyond to find whatever it is that they need. And some things are easier to find than others.
Yeah, and I think that the unique part of SAPAR is not only do they connect them to those kinds of programs, but then I've seen situations where a representative from the SAPAR team will attend sign-up sessions with the students or go to doctor's visits with the students. Whatever kind of scaffolding they need to be able to sustain engagement and whatever that support services they've identified that's best needed for that child and mom or family. Jessie, thank you so very much. I know you have to leave at 9:30, so I want to be respectful of your time. But
yes,
so
I didn't realize it was 9:30. I should go. Because it is 9:30. I really appreciate being invited in this space. Thank you so much. I'm happy to come back. Do whatever if you guys do something like this again. Thank you. Have a great day.
Talk to you later. Bye. So I'm just going to go through a few more of our slides to give a little bit of an overview of some of the other things that we do. The OT collaboration with the SAPAR program started 15, 20 years ago. I mean, a very, very long time ago. And it was initiated by Dr. Mary Schneider, and the SAPAR program actually reached out to her as at the time she was doing research in the area of impacts of stress and alcohol consumption. And so they reached out to her, and from that point in time, the collaboration has continued. And then when Mary retired, I took over the faculty connection for the faculty connection with our program. But it's always important to acknowledge Mary because she's really the one who set the foundation for all of our future collaborations. The best part about, in my opinion, and I think you heard some of this from Jessie, is that it's a true transaction of SAPAR and OT program needs and expertise. So it provides a wonderful community opportunity for our students to learn in hands-on real live experiences with support from faculty, but also we work really hard to try and meet identified needs of the SAPAR program. So we have some traditional buckets that we work with the program in, but every summer, and so once the school year ends, we always have a wrap-up meeting with Jessie and other staff saying what went well this year, what didn't go so well, what do we want to plan for the next year, what's on kind of your agenda that we can help with. And then we have another meeting in August saying, okay, let's kind of make a plan for the year. And that has worked really well because then it allows us to kind of align with what they're doing as a program and meet identified needs that they have versus coming in and saying, hey, we really want our students to gain experience in X or Y, but rather kind of blending with their needs. Also the changing needs of the students that they're enrolled in the program. So we kind of have 3 buckets of collaboration. We often participate in different types of classroom activities, and I'll talk a little bit more about these in detail. We support the SAPAR program in community engagement, and that is really something that they identify and lead and ask us to participate in different ways. And then we do some more, as I would put in quotes, traditional academic and research activities as well. So just kind of highlight some of the classroom activities. One of the roles that the SAPAR team really felt that we could bring to their program was thinking about child development and positive parenting. And one of the big pieces of that I think has been constant over the years that they've asked us to continue is that we go in and do a talk on what is a screening versus a developmental assessment, and talk a lot about the ages and stages questionnaire, which all mothers in Wisconsin should get for their infants at certain time points over the first year. And so we familiarize everyone with what the ASQ is, the purpose of it, and how they can use it to their advantage with their physician or community workers. And then we actually go through, and this is if the girls want to, it's a voluntary program, provide a developmental screening and potentially assessment on their infant with them present, and any other family members they would like there. And then we can go through the ASQ specifically to talk about it, and then use it for their, to think about where their children are at the time. Most of the time when we do this for the first time, the infants are somewhere between 3 weeks to 12 weeks old often. Sometimes we get some older infants in the program, but usually they're pretty young. So it's more providing a foundation for how to use the tool in the future. And then it also, for girls that are in the program, if they want or have a concern in the future, they can always tell their teachers, and then they call us and we come back and meet with them again. And so it provides a great opportunity to learn about developmental screenings, and how to use that to their advantage for future interactions with their healthcare providers. And with this, we always then at the end take a strength-based approach and thinking about healthy ways to play to promote development, because all of the moms want the best for their infants and want to think about how they can support positive development in the future. So based on that, we collaborate on ideas on ways that are ways to play, we call them, in the future. Other things we've done is we often have developmental play groups, guided learning and discussions that kind of take shape depending upon the needs for that year. And so we had to do some clear adaptation in the face of COVID because they are all virtual. And so one of the things that you heard Jessie referring to is that on Thursday afternoons, they have an open period where the girls are allowed to either catch up on work, meet with a teacher, or they provide a couple of other kind of specialty sessions that they can sign into for Zoom. So it's kind of almost like a study hall free choice hour. And they said it would be great if we could offer some developmental play groups. And so we worked with Jessie and a couple of the students to think about their curriculum and where we could align with what they're teaching in their adult roles and parenting classes. And then we also then talked with the girls in kind of a mini focus groups and say, hey, what are some things you're interested in? What are some things that we could help talk about that might be interesting to you? And so we came up with a list and a plan for the year, and Megan Gray, who is finishing up her OT degree, led them last year and had established such a strong relationship with the students. We convinced her to stay on and continue to lead them second semester instead of trying to rotate in a new facilitator because the rapport was so strong. And so every week they meet and a group of girls voluntarily choose to come in that session, and they bring their babies and they talk about whatever the topic is. And it's a kind of a collaborative learning where they think about what they're doing in their homes to promote development. And then we provide some guidance as well. And what we did in January, and we'll do again in May, is we took all the activities we had done and we bought supplies, and then Jessie and the principal were able to deliver bags of all the activities that we talked about, as well as the peer ideas that they provided, and materials to be able to complete those activities. Most of them are household materials, but other materials to be able to complete those activities over winter break to kind of report back in January. And it was a big success. Other classroom activities as we think about health promoting evidence-based practices. And so again, we collaborate with the teachers to come up with ideas that are most relevant to their curriculum, what they're doing. So things we've done over the years are they talk to us about stress reduction. So we've done guided imagery, adapted yoga for pregnant and early parenting moms, mindfulness. And you heard Jessie has a new wellness curriculum that we've helped support with some workshops within the classroom. We also every year do talks on effects of drugs and alcohol during pregnancy and do some interactive activities like the brine shrimp experiment. So to try and provide some hands-on activities to think about learning some of the concepts and thinking about the topics that we're talking about. And another example is we might do something on nutrition that aligns with their curriculum. And it always pre-COVID, it always came with some kind of interactive activity. And we try, and after we do engagement in the classroom, to do debriefing with students as well as with teachers to think about what was effective and what we need to change for next time and how to adapt programs. SAPAR really works to have community engagement, and one great example of that is Nights at the Museum. And they open up the museum in the late afternoon, early evening for pregnant and parenting families. And it can be have gone through the program at any time. So depending upon the weather, sometimes you might have 100 people there, and other times you might have 10 or 15, because it really is open to anyone who's been part of the program. And this is an example of where we just provide our services and support. So we might help serve food, we might help clean up, and we always provide a developmental activity to promote engagement with the parents and the children. So an activity that requires both people to complete. And then there might be other times where, when they first started this program, it was through a grant funding, and they everybody was staying on the first floor and they weren't exploring the museum. They're like, what are we going to do? So we created a developmental scavenger hunt that had a prize if you completed and went to all the different parts of the museum. So sometimes they come with us with a problem, even though it might be kind of a simple problem, and we try and collaborate to come up with an activity or solution to help meet their needs. Let's see. Sorry, it's going too fast. Can't figure out how to get it backwards. Yep, okay. Sorry about that. So we do also do more traditional academic and research activities. I'm not sure if anybody's heard of the INSPIRE grant through the Department of Public Instruction. It's in-school parent pregnancy intervention resources and education, and it aims to improve the education, economic, health, and social outcomes for school-age parents and their children. I should have looked up the very first grant. So the very first time, Lisa, and I think this is because of the foundation of partnership we had, she's like, I've seen this grant. She's like, I've never written a grant before. I'm not sure how to approach it. And so then we collaborated with them and helped them write the first iteration of the SAPAR grant. And worked with their team on submission of that grant, and it was funded. And because we had a true collaboration, I feel like, in developing and writing the grant, then they actually were able to take it on, and it became sustainable, and they have resubmitted a renewal every year and received it. So they do receive the INSPIRE grant, and I think this is the last year that that program is around, but it's probably been around for almost, I bet, 10 years. So that's a great example of where we were able to collaborate, and they were able to then sustain the program. Guided imagery is one of the activities that we had done with regards to support stress management, and that is something that did result in a peer-reviewed publication. We did find, we used pre-post measures in the classroom with guided imagery activity, and we did find a pretty significant stress reduction in the guided after post-guided imagery intervention. And interestingly enough, not only did we decrease stress post-intervention, in anticipation, we think, of us coming, we actually decrease stress. So their pre-stress levels decreased as well. So that was potentially some side effects. But so we have done more traditional research work within the context of the classroom. We're not doing guided imagery anymore. It seemed that the students weren't so interested in it. And so that's partly when we transitioned to this new curriculum and supporting them in wellness workshops. Currently, we do have funding for a community-based research project, the one through the Morgridge Center, so the Community-Based Research Project Development Grant, and that is focusing on the future directions for the structure of the Madison Metropolitan School District School-Age Parent and Pregnancy Program. As you heard Jessie alluding to, the new referendum that went through is going to support construction and development of Cap High, which will house all the alternative programs in Madison. And so SAPAR program will be integrated into that physical space, where right now it's in a middle school location. And so they're really thinking about what is the best way to provide continuing education for the pregnant and parenting teens in Madison, So is it still just moving SAPAR and housing it within that new space? Is it integrating the students into multiple classrooms? What are the key elements of their current program that really need to be replicated in the new site? And so what our team is doing is providing information to help them make some informed decisions on that. So we're doing an extensive literature review, we're interviewing current and past students, we're interviewing teachers, we're observing other programs to pull together information to support future decision making on what are the best evidence-based practices for students in Madison to support education and also meeting the other identified goals of the program, such as graduation rates, enrolling in post-secondary education, parenting skills, and decreasing repeat pregnancies before age 20. So those are the kinds of things we're thinking about. So I think that's about it for our overview. And you have already heard from Jessie. So I have asked each of the students to talk for about 2 minutes on their highlights of what they have done in the program. As I said, we really take a hierarchical approach of students mentoring students. And so Allie, I'll have you go first, and we are running up to 9:45, so I'm gonna time you.
No problem.
On your 2 minutes, so Allie.
2 minutes. Okay, yeah. So
go for it.
As I said before, I'm a second-year MSOT student, so I am like the baby of the group, I guess you could say, in education. I just wanted to say again, like how wonderful it's been to be involved in SAPAR. I think I have a pretty unique experience because about all of my time has been during COVID. So we've had to kind of take everything and change it and do it all online, which has actually been like a great experience too. And like knowing that some of my future clinical experiences could be in telehealth too. It is definitely a unique experience in that way. So Jessie touched on this a little bit too about how they were doing developmental lectures. And that was actually one of my very first experiences in SAPAR, was creating and developing that milestones in play lecture. In our OT program, we learned so much about the development of children and adolescents, but that material can be kind of over detailed at times and kind of hard to digest. So one of the most meaningful things to me was I was able to take that information and kind of change it and transform it into like a more accessible and meaningful way to them, and so that it was actually applicable to them and their children. And then that also helped me practice talking to clients and parents in ways that the information can make sense to them. And then I guess more recently, what Karla just talked about was we're working on this grant where I'm actually working with another OT student to create a literature review about all of the different evidence-based strategies and programs around the area that like are about pregnant and parenting teens, and so they can use that in their future directions and thinking about making changes to their program or keeping things the same. So even though that's a little bit less hands-on and we're not talking to the girls, it's definitely equally as valuable for me because I'm able to take like my skills and keep building on them, to use my research skills and my literature development and all of that, and use that to kind of meet their goals in their program. So it's definitely that we're both getting something out of it, which I just love.
Sorry, Yasmeena, why don't you jump in next?
Hi, my name is Yasmeena Ougayour, and I have worked with the SAPAR program for 2.5 years. So I started working with SAPAR right at the beginning of my master's degree, and I was able to learn from Libby, who you're going to hear from last. Currently, she's a PhD student, but at the time, she was a second-year OT student, and she really helped me learn a lot of professional development skills and being able to coordinate. It seems very easy, but it's a very challenging process. There's a lot of emails, there's a lot of organizational things that you wouldn't think about. So it was really nice collaborating with her and just having that like peer support. Also, Libby does have a child, so she helped a lot with like figuring out like what's going to work best developmentally. So we spent a lot of time collaborating with SAPAR, creating workshops and programming related to the developmental screening. Towards the spring semester of my first year, Libby was like, here, you got this, take control of this baby screen. So it was up to me to like actually put into practice what I was learning and organize the developmental screen so that us OT students who have been learning the pediatric evaluations could go in the classroom and actually do it on real babies. It was a little frightening, but one of my favorite experiences was we have another PhD student. Her name's Brittany St. John. She had a baby at the time, so she brought her child to the developmental screen to help support my learning as well as my peers. We just learned this pediatric evaluation called the Peabody, and it might seem very like daunting and scary to practice on an actual baby. But she did it in such a beautiful way where she allowed the opportunity for that like parallel hands-on learning experience for me, where she was able to work with her child. She's a licensed occupational therapist, and then also working with the baby. So I was able to see how to do it like in a way that's more effective than the standardized evaluation and the tips and tricks that went along with that. And that's really going to help me. I recently started working as a school occupational therapist, and I'm going to take these skills from what I learned in SAPAR and apply them to my future patients and beyond. So right now, I currently transitioned to my post-professional clinical doctorate in occupational therapy. And right now I'm working as a team lead, working on the community-based research grant. And again, having all these skills come together and putting them into practice is what I have taken from the program. Currently, we are setting up interviews and focus groups to look at the SAPAR program as well as other parenting programs in Wisconsin to be able to get feedback to, in a way, answer our research question on what is the best practice for creating a curriculum that's going to work for specific populations of parenting teens. So SAPAR has a lot of decisions to make, and it's really exciting to use evidence-based practice to be able to articulate our ideas and share it with people who might not fully grasp the research process. And it's really easy for us as students to just pull up an article and synthesize that information and put it into like a evaluation report and give it to these programs. It allows them to spend more time with the girls and focus on what they need, as well as it's like that cyclical thing of like, we're getting something out of it too, while they're able to focus on something else as well. And lastly, I'm working with Megan Gray. She is amazing. She created those Zoom Mommy and Me classes. So right now I'm working with her in finishing out the rest of the semester on Zoom with the girls weekly. Overall, I'm just very thankful for my experiences and the opportunity to practice my clinical skills with SAPAR and the ability to just learn from the girls because they're often the best teachers. And I will leave it up to Libby to conclude.
Sounds great. Thanks, Yasmeena, for all the compliments that you gave me. So I have been with SAPAR, this program now, 4 years. I've taken on a lot of different roles. I've sort of gone through all of the different ways that we work with SAPAR. I started at the very beginning, and when I had zero clinical skills, I was learning the tools of the screening, and then I took on being able to deliver lectures and do screenings when I gained some clinical skills in the program. And then I took on a role of coordinating, what Yasmeena was talking a little bit about, developing programming, working with Jessie to figure out what the needs of the program were, and then deliver lectures and the favorite brine shrimp experiment that we do and talk about alcohol and drugs with the students and the effects on pregnancy. And then I took on more of a great role of mentoring. And so I passed the coordinating responsibilities to Yasmeena and have moved more into a mentorship role. And now that I'm doing my PhD, I'm almost sort of a consultant in sometimes with the program. I've stepped in and supported Megan with clinical skills when she was getting started with doing our telehealth. I'm able to, when we do screenings, when we are in person, I'm able to support, like Yasmeena was talking about Brittany being able to support teaching clinical skills while we are working with the students live. I have the skills to do that now. And I'm also now thinking about the work that we do as a scientist, as I'm developing my own research agenda and my interests. And I'm really interested in family well-being, and SAPAR has really, the work that we've done with SAPAR has really shaped that idea and like my thoughts about that and how OTs and occupational scientists collaborate with families and what barriers and supports they might need. Kate, I was super interested in your question because one of the things that I will be working on with our research engagement grant project, where we're developing recommendations for SAPAR, is thinking about how we might take these recommendations and this idea of occupation-based education for parenting and pregnant teens and talk to other scientists and researchers and occupational therapists in general. And so we're hoping that we might develop a model or some sort of framework that takes a lot of the work that we've done in a literature review and working with SAPAR to make recommendations so that people in other parenting and pregnant programs can use that work. And we'll see how it goes. There's still a lot of work to be done. I know we're short on time, so I'll
Thank
leave
you,
it at
Libby.
that.
Yeah. So Haley and Laura, I know we only have 5 minutes left, but I guess we can open it up for about 5 minutes of questions. Allison.
Hi, my question is for Allie. So it seems like I have, Jessie highlighted in all of your highlights individually really talked about how this program has been influential in your OT education, and Yasmeena and Libby kind of alluded to how it's impacted your clinical or research goals. Allie, I'm interested if this program and your involvement in SAPAR has kind of made you think about your role as an OT as you're graduating here in a couple of months. If it has, or how you see this project and your involvement really influencing how you want to be an OT and make a difference in the lives of other people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. When I came into OT school, I kind of knew that I liked peds and wanted to work with families, but I never really fully understood like the importance of family-centered practice and like how cool it can be and like how effective it can be to work with like the whole family unit and like really targeting the needs of moms and their kids is like that realization was just like mind-blowing to me. So I will definitely take that with me into my career if I work in peds, hopefully, and just like keeping that in my mind at all times, like what I learned in this program.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? I know we kind of took it up to the end. Sorry.
I guess I have a question, which is a question I have for many folks who do community engagement work. Are there other supports that would be helpful for you and your team and community, your whole team, students, community partners? Are there other supports from the university that would be helpful in supporting your work?
If you could get us a little more time, Haley. I think that
real,
for our,
it does take extra time to do such collaborative work.
Yeah, so we are, our lab is really committed to engaging with the SAPAR program, but it does take a lot of time. And I think it has taken years to establish the framework. And we've really, for better or worse, we've highlighted a lot of the positive transactions that have occurred over time. We probably should have highlighted a slide that said lessons learned. On how we have actually gotten to this point, because it does take a very long time to have such a strong relationship with a community organization to be able to have collaborative planning, multi-hierarchical mentoring, try and work within the context of their curriculum. So I'm not sure. I think time and money is the big thing, but I think things like the CBR grant is great. And that's such a great opportunity because I said, here's this opportunity. And I sent them the information and they had been so focused on these wellness workshops and participating. Like, I'm wondering if we can think about this for that. And they looked at the RFA and they're like, no, that's not what we want to do. We want you to do this groundwork for us so that we can make some real decisions. So I think if we as university entities can establish community partners, then we can really think about using the resources that you all provide in effective ways. And so it was their idea completely to think about can you help us think about what is the best way to provide future education as this referendum was likely going to pass, but the SAPAR program was definitely going to change. So I feel like it's real, like it's a real meaningful collaboration. So it's just time and money.
Can I jump in a minute? Can
Yeah.
you hear me? Okay. I'm Mary
Yes.
Schneider. And
Oh, hey, Mary.
I've been online this whole time on my phone, do it because I had to be out of
yay.
the house. I just want to say, I can hardly find the words to express all the feelings I'm having right now. You know, listening to Karla and Jessie and the students and Libby, I am so grateful for everything that you have done since I came in, I don't know, 25 years ago and gave my talks on prenatal stress and prenatal alcohol and started brought a bunch of students with me. That's what we do as professors. And we go out to the community to bring our research into, using the Wisconsin idea, bringing our research into the community. I can't even put into words how grateful I am for what you guys have done. And just the thought that the ripple effect over the years in terms of my career is so touching. This is just one of the most wonderful experiences of my career. So thank you from the absolute bottom of my heart. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mary. So that was the Mary Schneider, Professor Emeritus, who actually started the program. So I'm so glad I invited her, but I didn't realize you were on the call. I'm glad you're here, Mary.
I'm just honored to be here and very moved, very, very moved about all the wonderful things you are doing.
We're so appreciative of the groundwork that you've laid for us, because this is by far our favorite. SAPAR is our favorite program. Everyone loves to work with SAPAR. So we are very appreciative that you started this collaboration.
That is so touching. I am just happy beyond words to be here.
But I think Kaylee also, Mary's suggestion that this collaboration started 25 years ago.
At least.
So, I mean, I think that just talks about the sustainability and how we've been able to create and how long community partnerships really take. And I really, as being part of the Mortgage Fellow, this idea that sustainability, but you don't want to take over a role for your community partner. And I do feel that we've continued to evolve to meet community needs, not just worked within doing something for them, if that makes sense.